So now let's take a look at what this internal server error was. So I have the traceback coming from the backend here, and it's saying that it looks like there's a difference between, I might have specified this as lowercase, whereas the input is coming in as uppercase, and looking at it, it looks like this may have just been like my mistake, because it looks like most of the genders here are uppercase male. So this does bring up a good point that I wanted to talk about, which was the difference between unit testing and integration testing. Having a regular unit test, we mock things like the database connection, so that we're not actually touching the database. That way we can isolate the logic to that one function that we're unit testing. That's good. That's useful to have, but it's also useful to have what's called an integration test. So an integration test would actually be using those services. So you'd be actually like making an API call, and it would actually go out to DuckDB to be able to get the data. That way we're getting a more thorough test. So I have a prompt on my clipboard here, and I'll paste it in right now. Again, I'll share this prompt in the actual description of the video, but basically I'm saying that I'm getting an error. I posted the actual error that I'm getting down here. Then I'm saying that most of them seem to be uppercase already, so the change I want to do is when I make a post request, I want it to accept either lowercase or uppercase and then store it in the database as uppercase, since that's what's already there. And then I want it to go ahead and create an integration test, and it can use 2554 specifically as the ID to just test that it exists and that we can get it properly. So we'll give that to the implementation agent. Notice that I'm on the session that still has what we just integrated, since that'll probably be relevant. I'll also just add routes.py to the context. Here's another example where the AI did something kind of interesting. So it changed the optional literal that it has to take to be the uppercase versions. But what it did here, and I have the documentation over on another screen I'll pull up in a sec, is it made a field validator, and from the documentation, what this is doing is it's running whatever it has before it actually does the validation. That's what the actual mode parameter does. Converts everything to lowercase. So in this case, I mean, what I asked the AI for is basically if you specify lowercase to make it uppercase. But it went ahead and just made the whole thing case insensitive, which is fine. So if they specify everything in capital letters, for example, we'll convert it all to lowercase letters here, and then we'll compare that with the lowercase version and then return the uppercase version. So then, now that you have the uppercase version, now it'll actually validate against that. So here's the actual documentation for it. So if we go to using the decorator pattern, so you can use an annotation pattern where you're just specifying annotated as the type hint, then you're putting what the actual type is, and then you are defining the function for validation. And then there's another way with using an actual decorator pattern. And the advantage of a decorator pattern is that you can reuse this on whatever functions that you'd like. Back in the code here, so you can see with the field validator decorator that it's on the gender and it is before. So you can specify like other fields in here if you had other fields that we wanted to validate with this case insensitivity, like let's say grace or something like that, and it would go ahead and do that. In fact, let's stick with that. Let's see what happens with that. So on the actual test, what we're doing here is it is modifying the successful create we had before. So it is specifying the gender as the lowercase version, and then it's going to validate that what gets created is the uppercase version. And then it is doing a similar thing down here where it's testing that a female athlete, again, lowercase version gets converted to the uppercase version. And I think that's it for this file too. Oh, looks like it's doing the same thing down here. Okay, it's validating that we get the uppercase version when we do a get request. Okay, so that's fine. Let's keep that. Over in the database, why did we make a new function? Oh, we just didn't accept it from before. Before when we did the athlete model. And then, okay, so here's the integration test that it has now. It's maybe a little bit verbose, but it is doing what it's supposed to. So it is getting the response of 2554, and it's asserting that all these fields are appearing, that gender is the uppercase version, or else it's going to say this. This test get non-existent, we don't need this, I don't think, so let's just get rid of that. Okay, and then we'll keep that. What else do we have here? So we'll do that. It's asking to run a test, so we'll allow that. So the individual test pass, it hasn't run the integration test yet, but the one thing that I did want to change here is we know the name of 2554. That's never going to change unless we end up deleting that one. So I just want to assert that the name will equal that. So let's go ahead and run the integration. Okay, so the tests have all passed now. So let's pull up Swagger Docs again as we did last time. Let's hit try it out. This is the one where we have to specify the ID. Let's do 2554. And it gets the athlete. Now that the endpoint is working correctly, let's move on to create the actual UI for the profile in Streamlit. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.